It is 9 a.m. and we will call the meeting to order. First order of business. Roll call.
Chair.
Present.
Regent Ball.
Present.
Regent Brody.
Present.
Regent Dennis. Present. Vice Chair Milliken.
Present.
Regent Nichols.
Present.
Regent Spiller.
Present.
Regent Thomas. Secretary West. And Regent Porter.
Present.
And Mr. Chair, we have 9 regents present representing.
Thank you very much. And before we get to the agenda, I would like to take note of Regent Ball's husband passed away last night after a long illness. We had a revered chemistry teacher die relatively suddenly this week, and then with the events in Louisville, I'm going to ask for a 30-second moment of silence where we can all reflect on what's been going on in our world. Thank you. First on our agenda is our Academic Affairs Committee. Chair, open chairs.
Thank you, Dr. Bell. We have several items this morning on the Academic Affairs Committee. First action item is the approval of graduate certificate in enterprise management. Mr. Provo.
Yes, at this time, I'd like to ask Chris Shook and Dana Crosby to come up and kind of describe for us why this was put in.
So good morning, everybody. I think I warned you all last year when we were revising our curriculum that we would be back. So we're back. This morning, you'll see some of the continuing changes in undergraduate offerings, but now we're going to talk first with our graduate programs. We've shifted our focus to changing the graduate programs to meet the needs of the market and industry and make them more modular and stackable. And I've invited Dan Cosby, Associate Dean for Graduate Programs and Outreach, to talk about that process.
Thank you. So the enterprise certificate that you see before you is something that we've heard is a need from the community in terms of career changers, career crossers, and then also succession plan development for mid-level managers that want to take the next step. And so enterprise management includes those courses that will provide a basic business acumen for those populations. In addition, the enterprise management certificate then becomes part of a stackable credential with our new MBA design. And so we have tried to design our stackable with the end in mind in terms of adaptability, flexibility.
Just a comment, I was really impressed that our MBA program has more than doubled in the past 3 years. I think that's just a wonderful achievement, and I was happy to see that. Do we have any discussion? I will then entertain a motion to approve the establishment of a graduate certificate in enterprise management within education in the fall of 2023. To have such a motion.
These are committee meetings, so only people on the committee.
Have a motion and a second. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Sure, we're gonna get that one through there. Action item number 2 is the approval of graduate certificate in executive decision making through the Gordon College.
And I'll pass it on to Dana right away on this one.
Okay, again, this is a second certificate program, that's part of the 5 certificate program sequence for stackable MBA. It's acumen in executive decision-making concerns at the macro level. And so we're, again, taking the information that we've got from the market to inform us in developing this certificate.
Any discussion?
So this time I'm gonna ask questions because I'm thinking these two together. So just to pick on Dr. Cosby, because we work together quite extensively. So could you explain for us how many certificates we have now in the NBA? How is these two going, but that will then work together, what the choices will be to create a program for our students?
Okay, so the 5 certificates that we currently have available for the stacking design of the MBA with supply chain, hopefully improved enterprise management, the executive decision making. We also have business data analytics and cybersecurity data analytics. So the students, we expect that among the change and the career development student population that we have there, that we have some that will want to pick one certificate to advance their career. And then as they have a need for additional skill sets, perhaps choose another. And so those 5 certificates can be combined in stackables to meet their career development and also add a new sort of structure for our MBA program.
A lot of these classes online or they,
So currently they are exclusively.
so you could work full time and you do it at night.
Yes.
Any other discussion? I'll entertain a motion to approve the graduate certificate and executive making decisions with application in the fall of 2023. So moved. Have a motion second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries. Action item number 3 is the approval of an undergraduate certificate in sales through the Department of Marketing with the Gordon Ford College of Business.
I'd like to bring up Lucas, Lucas Forbes, Chair.
Yeah, I'm Lucas Forbes. The intention with the certificate is really twofold. We're finding that a lot of corporations are interested more in a certificate as opposed to a minor for a variety of reasons. It allows the student to sort of dip their toe in a bunch of different areas. To give you an example, you can do a marketing minor, 21 or 24 credits, an analytics minor, 21 or 24 credits, or a student could do a 12 credit certificate in sales, 12 credit certificate in analytics, and be able to do both. So it gives more options to the students. It gives them the opportunity to sort of have more touch points in a variety of areas. So our intention with the sales certificate, the sales minor has about 25 majors across campus taking this. So we're hoping with the certificate that'll continue or increase, or we'll have a lot more majors taking our sales minor or certificate.
Have any other questions or discussion? I will entertain then a motion to approve the establishment of an undergraduate certificate in sales be implemented in the fall of 2023. Have a motion second? Second. Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed? All opposed? Motion carried.
He's had too much.
All right, action item number 4 is the approval of an undergraduate certificate in executive influence and organization through the Department of Management within the Gordon Ford College of Business.
So Dr. Peak, the department chair, is not here today, so I've asked Dana to pinch hit for her out of the management department, and then we have Regents still are also out of the management department.
Okay, so our undergraduate certificate that we are proposing today is something that was designed in response to what we were hearing from our business development in terms of needing to have some focused skill sets available in this format. And so we're very pleased to present this to you. Feel like that this could be a very good pipeline for students into this area of business. It also offers us the opportunity to collaborate across campus for students that might have particular interest in this area.
So I would just to add a little bit, and talking about the next three agenda items together here, because they all came out of the same process. That meeting with our advisory board, talking with them, like Dr. Forbes said about the difference between minors and certificates. And the advisory board expressed to us that certificates that we could get some very quick branding. And we were able to create these with no additional resources in our department, but to give some branding to our students and things that we were already doing. And they're set up in a way so that students could take one of our intro classes and then get a taste of what this might be, and then have the prerequisite to take the other classes. And so we may have non-business majors, non-management majors who can get these certificates, or we may just have the branding that comes from the majors already in our program. Now would have additional credentials that they get on the way to getting their undergraduate.
Any other questions or comments?
I'm not a member of the committee, but since this is what I do for a living, is online education. And this has been going on for a couple of years, probably longer than that, of micro-credentialing. People are busy. People are used to going on Google, just getting a piece of information, and the ability for a university to offer a credential that I can now say I have that, and I can do it quickly, is where everybody's trending to. So I'm really glad to see the university move in this direction. And it is, what you made is, we were gonna open up the audience of people. It's not your traditional students, so I want people that are in jobs, they say, I want that knowledge to be better in the job I'm in. So it will even, I think, every time you give them good experience, plus a credential, they're going to.
This is very much in line with our retreat last summer. We did a book review on the great upheaval and talked about micro credentials, badges, certificates, and students today want what they want, when they want it, how they want it. Says through a lot of that, very much in line with.
Is the cost, is it so much per credit hour?
So with the undergraduate and with the graduate certificates, there are for credit. And so the same tuition rate applies as normal.
What helps is that the fact that they're stackable, so that over time I could actually get a degree, which would be even better. And I've done it in a way that's more manageable personally versus the typical traditional structure. So this is, I don't think people are concerned so much about the cost. It's really the knowledge and the speed which I can get it.
And you have to keep in mind the competition like that. Microsoft is so is good as coming to the modern art, all the PhD, so. Well, thank you.
Have any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to establish an undergraduate certificate in executive influence and organizations to be implemented in the fall of 2023.
So moved.
Have a motion, second?
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Action item number. Good. 6. Action item number 5, the approval of an undergraduate certificate in managing inclusive organizations through the Department of Management within the Gordon Ford College of Business.
Okay,
It's GFCD day.
okay. So again, this is second credential at the undergraduate level. The faculty listened in response to the advisory council, looked at existing courses that made sense in this area to provide that background for completers. And so we're happy to propose this.
It's indicated that this will better equip our students to meet the industry needs, which is what we've actually been talking about here this morning. Do we have any other questions or comments about this item? If not, I would accept a motion to establish an undergraduate certificate in managing inclusive organizations to be implemented in the fall of 2023. Second. Have a motion, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. Now we'll get to action item number 6. The approval of an undergraduate certificate in creativity and innovation management through the Department of Management in the Gordon Ford College of Business.
Okay, so this certificate, again, is one of the certificates that were designed with advice and counsel of our business advisory group and business community at large. And in particular, this certificate focuses on the areas that's related to entrepreneurship. And so we feel like this provides a real value add to the university in terms of providing those sorts of skills needed by people across campus with those types of objectives in mind.
Do we have any other questions or comments? If not, I'll accept a motion to establish an undergraduate certificate in creativity and innovation management to be implemented in the fall of 2023.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could make a comment on all 6 of these action items. We don't typically describe universities as particularly nimble. And we're terrific at pattern maintenance. Academic innovation does not come easily, nor does change management. And I want to say kudos to the Dean of the College of Business, the department chairs who were involved in this, and all the faculty who were willing to put to the side those things that we've always done and think differently, to be innovative, to be creative, to do things not just that the market demands, but that are good for our students and will increase enrollment. You know, we've gone through a process, a difficult change process, where some things we used to do, we don't do anymore. And that's the only way you get to this. And so I'm so proud of the work of the Gordon Ford College of Business. I'm so proud of the creativity. I'm so proud of how they've advanced the college, and you're seeing the results because of that willingness to do something different. And so proud of them, proud of this work, and I look forward to seeing the fruits of their efforts in coming years.
Thank you. Action item number 7 is the approval of an academic program suspension for the program of folk studies, Masters of Arts.
Yeah, I would like to bring up Dean Terrence Brown to discuss this.
Morning, all.
Assistant Dean.
I bring to you a suspension that is heavy on all of our hearts simply because of the longevity and history of the program. It is a place that we have come due to meet certain budgetary efficiencies within the college. In fall 2021, we implemented a personnel and non-personnel budget request process for the college. And with that, we worked to use our existing resources to maximize the needs within the unit. Each year, departments, schools submit budgetary requests to our college in order for us to consider them to staff either faculty or staff on the staff side. And this year, we had a request from the Department of Folk Studies and Anthropology to replace 2 positions, and we were unable to provide those 2 due to those things. However, we were able to do 1 staff position and Kentucky Folklife position, Folklife program. The faculty considered those heavily,
and felt after that, that would not be able to meet their needs, and decided to go for suspension after that. So here we are today.
Have any other questions or comments concerning this suspension of this program?
About how many people is this gonna affect?
Right now, we have currently to 11 enrolled in the program. However, after this academic year, I think we will have 2 or 3. We have our jump student, Lamont Jack Purley, should be the last person in the program. This is in the suspension period. And I want to be clear that this is a suspension, not a deletion at this point.
So we are committed to teaching out all of the students who are.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
We were committed to teaching out all of those students in the program.
Yes, yes. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to suspend folk studies, Masters of Arts be implemented in the spring of 2023. So moved. Second. Motion made and second. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Action item number 8 is the approval for academic program suspension for the program of Agricultural Bachelor of Science, course number 605.
I'd like to bring up Dean Brown, to talk about that.
We currently have 2 bachelor's degrees in agriculture. One is number 508, one is number 605. Major 508 is a core in agriculture, plus several concentrations that allow you to specialize in an area of agriculture. 605 is the same core in agriculture courses and the specification of a minor. So this is, we have found this is an administrative redundancy that only serves to confuse students and advisors. And so what we are doing is we are moving the major as a concentration under the 508 Bachelor in Agriculture. This does not affect any students or any courses. So we keep all the same courses, all the students are served. This simply reduces some administrative overhead.
Any questions or comments about this? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the suspension of Agriculture Bachelor of Science number 605 to be implemented in the fall of 2023. Motion, second. Motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. Action item number 9 is the approval of emeritus status for Dr. Anthony McQueen.
So it's my pleasure to ask for emeritus status for Dr. Tony Paquin. He joined WKU as an assistant professor of psychology in 2024 and remained here until he retired in 2022. Dr. Paquin's efforts in bringing cross-cultural awareness to WKU students, faculty, and staff are manifested through his creation of classes, his teaching of study abroad areas, especially in Japan, and completing level 1 and 2 cultural intelligence certificates. He was also, while he was here, was awarded the Joseph P. Tagnum Award for Excellence in Leadership in Psychology and Education, and was nominated for College of Education and Behavioral Sciences Faculty Excellence Awards 8, 211, and 217.
Most finisher. Do you have any other questions or comments concerning this motion? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve emeritus status for Dr. Anthony Paquin. Somebody have a motion, a second. A second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Chairman Bale, that concludes the matters to be taken up the Academic Affairs Committee today?
Do we have one information?
I have two, really. I would like to add one at the end, but the first one, we'd like to continue what we've been doing, which is informing the board of how great our faculty are and what they do. And today we have a special faculty member here, Dr. Janet Pascal, who I loved it, who has a degree from Indiana and joined WKU in 2008 and is an expert in mathematics education. And I'd like to bring her up, and the title of her presentation today is A Fulbright Sabbatical to Remember, Lessons Learned in Prague and Beyond. With that, Janet.
Borrow your corner here. You know what I'm most nervous about? Is the 5 to 7 minute time limit. I'm so worried about that. So if I go over, I apologize.
There's a buzzer.
So I'm pressing my start here on the timer. I'm just gonna watch. Okay, so Dobry den, which is hello in Czech. And I had the wonderful opportunity in the fall of 22 to do a sabbatical Fulbright Award in the Czech Republic. And I ironically was supposed to go on my sabbatical in the fall of 20. I don't know what happened. And that I asked for a delay and got the delay from the provost. And then fall of 21 rolled around and the same thing again, still with COVID. So I finally got my wherewithal to think, I know I'm gonna go fall of 22. So I'm gonna also apply for a Fulbright. So that gave me the timing and the chance and the opportunity to really plan ahead, which was wonderful. So to tell you a little bit about this, from Kentucky to Czechia, which Czech Republic wants to be called Czechia now, and lessons in between, and a U.S. Fulbright experience. So why a sabbatical with Fulbright? Part of this really was about, for me, safety. I wanted to be connected with an international organization and have that kind of connection to a respected international award. So that was one reason. Another reason is there was a connection, direct connection to the embassy. And I loved that. We got to visit the embassy, turned in our ballots to the embassy for mail-in ballots. And we also got connection to the Ministry of Education. So that was all very wonderful. And there's a community of scholars, professors, English teaching assistants who are recent graduates from all over the United States that I got to be in orientation and business throughout the country. But why Prague? How many of you have been to Prague? So you know why, right? It's wonderful, it's beautiful. We landed, we were greeted with a rainbow at the airport. My husband was able to go with me the whole time. And also the ease in travel, the public transportation with the convenient airport, underground trains, the tram system, the train system, and boats. I didn't do the boat, the only one I didn't do. But here is a picture that I took from the Petron Tower, which is the miniature Eiffel Tower. And it gives you a really nice aerial view of the city and all of the ways you can cross the river, many footbridges and transportation available. And then here, this is really fun, but this is where I took a picture from the National Museum from the cupola of Wenceslas Square, which is one of the most famous areas in the world, especially in Czech Republic. And then right here, to show you where I live. It's hard to tell here, but there's KFC. I lived up the street from KFC, if you can believe the irony of that. And also across from the police station. So I felt very safe all of the time while I was there. So if you're wondering, like I did, I'm just not really familiar with Europe. I always had to kind of think, where am I situated? I know Germany's close, I know Austria's close, but where are they really? So here gives you a chance to see. So Czech Republic is kind of in the middle of all of it, which was wonderful. And there was an ease of travel, of course, again, because of the public transportation. And my husband and I, on some lectures that I did, went as far south as Romania and as far north as Sweden. And then also probably of interest is where is Ukraine and Russia situated. So that was a little scary. I got the award in April after the war started in March. So here is a zoomed in version of Czech Republic, and where Prague is located in central Bohemia. And we visited all over the country. And as far west is Karlovy Vary and Pilsen. And as far south is Český Krumlov, and then to Brno and Pardubice for some lectures that I did. So why Charles University? So that was my university, my education connection for my Fulbright. Charles University is the oldest and most respected college or university in Czech Republic, like the Harvard of Czech Republic, which was a little bit intriguing too. And I had the opportunity, I connected with the mathematics education or pedagogica college there, and was able to do all of these things in connection with Charles University. So my teaching was co-teaching with a former Fulbrighter from there to Berkeley. And it was to do the classical readings and mathematics education class with him. And then secondary math methods course, I gave guest lectures for the department head that hosted me. And then my research was on math mindfulness seminar series with pre-surveys, 3 seminars, and a post-survey series. And that is a replication study that I did here from an RCAP funded grant a few years ago with Dr. Natasha Kirstenschlager-Wilson from the mathematics department. The other list there is the inter-country professional travel that I did to other countries to do lectures of gifted education in mathematics, identification, problem solving, and math mindfulness. I went and shared that in different places, as you can see here. But I also found out once I got there that you could apply to Fulbright for other countries to get grant funding to go there. And then you were covered with safety and insurance and all of those things. That was wonderful. So my teaching, I loved co-teaching with Dr. Kabas. It was all about him wanting me to add to that class about things that were holes in their curriculum. So one of the things you can see here, me working with their future teachers on engagement strategies. The predominant mode of delivery for education in Czech Republic is lecture. So it was, they were very welcoming for me to do all kinds of things, which was wonderful. And then here you can see me with the secondary math methods course, where I got to present about mathematics norms and the importance of those in your classroom, and also the standards for mathematical practice, which is our national foundation of all pedagogy. And then you can see here, this is my building that I worked in and my wonderful doors that I got to go in every day. This is the research section for you. So again, the mindfulness math research, also working with math anxiety, mindset, and with self-efficacy for our future teachers to be strong in their mental health, but also to be strong enough to share that with their students so that they can be better and engage in positive ways. So you can see here the different activities in my seminars that I did with them. And also in this last picture, I want to do a really big shout out to Dr. Murphy, Dean Murphy from CEBS for funding my books for incentives. I didn't quite get one of the internal grants, and she made sure I had the funding for that. And you can see this was one of the books they received on mathematical mindsets. And I had 15, and 15 were my target for control and intervention, and I exceeded it by 1 with recruitments of over probably 200 students that I talked with. But they were wonderful, wonderful to work with. And I'm analyzing the data now. So my intercountry travel, like I said, I had some grants to help me with that, and some of it I did my own personal roadmap here. I, of course, WKU to Prague, and then to Brno, to Masaryk University to talk about mindfulness, then to Radboud and schools in the Netherlands. I got to see so many schools everywhere I went. It was wonderful. Budapest, Hungary, to see a school in mathematics, a gifted mathematics school and meet the Math Olympiad coach for the country. That was wonderful. Cluj-Napoca, Romania, where teachers make very little money. But I got to speak to a psychology class there on identification of mathematics, giftedness, and then to Krakow, Poland, where I got to visit with the university and over 100 free service teachers. And then to Sweden, where I went to university and some schools there in Stockholm and worked with their gifted education PhD students. So here's a few pictures of the schools in Czech Republic. If you're wondering what they look like, they're beautiful, a lot like ours. And then I got to see the famous Haney method, which is math pedagogy in Czech Republic that they're so proud of, and that is original to their country. But no one knows about it because it was developed during communism and wasn't something that they were allowed to publish about. So finally, I had the opportunity, of course, to see a lot of beautiful beauty all over the country. And this is one of the famous locations, the Lenin Wall, which I know some of you have probably been there as well. And this photo was taken on a photo shoot that we hired a person that was a Ukrainian refugee that was living in Prague that escaped when the war started. So it kind of, there were a lot of emotional things that happened during that time, but this is just an example of how that kind of all sealed up the day before we left. And so, a little bit more Czech for you. Děkuji, thank you. Nashladno, goodbye. Ahoy, bye. So that is it.
How is it different there?
So I would say with the Haney method, the schools that have embraced using that method, it is all about developing healthy relationships with mathematics, which is why my department head said you need to really connect and write and talk about that in your application. And I got to look through all of his books as well that he designed. He and his father, there's like 2 Haney generations that designed all of this work. And I would say that the striking thing about it was the mental health with the relationship with mathematics and the spatial reasoning was so predominant in the materials that they have for the methods. So it was more about spatial reasoning, and I feel like that is such a weakness in most of our materials.
We all really enjoy having our faculty come in and share with us their work. The highlight of every meeting.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
So much.
So I have one more informational item I'd like to add. If you read the news yesterday put out, you would have seen it, but I think it's worth repeating. That Ms. Vivian Rivera, a junior biology major and a minor in chemistry, was awarded the prestigious Barry Goldwater Scholarship. We have not had a Barry Goldwater winner since 2019. There are only 413 of them nationwide, and there's only 3 in the state of Kentucky, 2 at Louisville and 1 here, which is great because the Blue School didn't get any. Just my first opinion. Yeah, I would say that it's based on the fact that you have done undergrad research, and the undergrad research that she has done has been in ethnobotany at the Missouri Botanical Gardens. And if you know anything about the Missouri Botanical Gardens, it's the #1 botanical gardens maybe in the world. I mean, it's an amazing place that Dr. Raven has run for forever, I think. And what she's looking for is using plants, and she will go on to graduate school because this is to help her get to graduate school, is to look for medical or medicines in plants. And she's working with Amazonian plants right now.
My way to the meeting this morning was in the VR, David. I did hear something about our photojournalism hot news today.
Yes, our photojournalism program again won the Hearst Photojournalism Award. This is the 7th year in a row, and we have won 29 out of 34 potential. So continuing our success on the national stage as the #1 photojournalism program in the country.
And having had a recent presentation with them, we can all understand why.
Sorry, Philip, where did you hear that?
I heard it on the NPR, the WKU, NPR. Which is what my radio is all.
What number is that? On your radio? 88.9 FM.
All right, very good. We're gonna move to the Finance and Budget Committee. Chair West is with us. She does have to leave at some point this morning due to the tragedies in Louisville this week. We'll see if we get through the committee meeting. If we don't, go carry on.
We have several action items today. The first one on the agenda, FB1, is to accept for filing the statement of revenue and expenditures for 2022 and 2023. And we have Susan Howard is with us this morning. She couldn't be here in person, but she is on Zoom. Susan.
So good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Loud and
Yes,
clear.
we can hear you.
Okay, good. Again, I'm sorry I can't be there in person. I would much rather be there, but anyway, I'm glad I could join via Zoom. So we actually, if you can go to the next slide, Jeff. These are the action items that we have for the Finance and Budget Committee meeting today. So next slide, Jeff. And next slide. So once again, we feel as if the third quarter budget versus actual is a good report for the board. This is what overall our revenues look like. You can see that we're a little behind where we were as a percent of budget last year. Most of that primarily relates to the grants and contracts area, which I'll go into in more detail. But as you know, that's because we're not receiving the CARES money as part of the COVID pandemic. So next slide. So the net tuition revenue, I think, is a really positive message for the board and is very important to our institution since we are tuition dependent. So net tuition revenue, we're at 90% as a percent of budget as compared to where we were year over year. We were at 85% last year. So this is really good news. And as I told the board at the second quarter report that we went through, a lot of this has to do with all the good efforts across campus, retaining our students from fall to spring. So, excuse me. One last item, summer tuition will post primarily during May. And the good news about that is that there's really minimal financial aid impact. So I think you'll even see a further improvement in our net tuition revenue. So I do have the budget and finance team there in the board meeting. So does anyone have any questions on this? Okay, next slide. So our state appropriation, again, when the states do this very well, they allocate, I think it's quarterly, and you can see we're right on par as to where we were last year at 80% as a percent of budget. Just a reminder, the increase in our state appropriation was due to the investment and performance funding, which we are grateful to our legislator for. I think next, please. In grants and contracts. So you'll see that decline, and that's what I was referring to earlier, which really led to the overall decline in revenue as a percent of budget. And that's just has to do with the decrease in the one-time HERF funds. So next slide. And next. So other revenue, we're in line almost exactly as where we were last year. So 38% of the budget. Next, please. Auxiliary is actually trending a little slightly better than we were last year. I will say the year-over-year increase is primarily related to additional reimbursements from the Student Life Foundation for student housing expenses. This is primarily timing. And so next, please. In sales and services, we expect to be right where we were last year. What this is this is revenue that we have not received from one of our athletic opponents. And it's actually from our game with Indiana. So they have told us that they will be sending us the money, and we expect to receive that probably within the next month. Next slide. So before I go to expenses, any questions on revenues? Okay. So you'll see that our overall, our expenses are slightly higher as a percent budget as compared to last year, but nothing too much. So if you go to the next slide. Personnel, again, 71% versus 69% last year. That is primarily why we did have a salary increase. That was already factored into the budget. So this is primarily refilling the approved positions that were vacated from VSIP. So next slide. And the other direct expenses under expenditures, again, you'll see that that decline in the other financial assistance, and that has to do with the CARES money that were distributed directly to our students in 22 that we no longer have. We have seen operating and travel activity returning to pre-COVID levels. Primarily, the rest of the increases are directly related to fixed cost and contractual increases, strictly related to inflation. So the budget office is continuing to monitor those inflationary cost increases across the university. Next slide. Okay, so I'm sorry. So that was it for the third quarter revenue versus and expenditures. Any questions?
Further discussion? Not, that I will entertain a motion to accept for filing the statement of revenues and expenditures for the 9 months ended March 31st, 2023 and 2022. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Our next action item is personnel actions, and it's approval of personnel actions, which have been approved through the administrative channels. Susan, do you have any comments on that?
No, not really. These are standard personnel actions and one-time payments we bring to you each quarter. The only comment I would make is that we are missing, because of the timing of the month end, we are missing the March items, which you will see in the fourth quarter. So nothing unusual in any of these. Any questions?
Any further discussion about the personnel actions? And then I will entertain a motion to approve the faculty and staff personnel action. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? And I just wanted to mention one thing. We had a discussion in a meeting about the length of the personnel actions reports, and I think Susan and her team might look into way maybe we could streamline this a little bit. So
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Regent West, because in looking at how we can create interim financial statements, we are talking with some of the other comprehensive institutions across the state. And we're going to find out exactly how they handle these items, because I know there's a lot of data. And so we want to bring it to the board as efficiently as possible.
Thank you, Susan. All right, moving on to action item number 3. It's to accept the resolution providing for the authorization issuance of general receipts refunding obligations.
Okay, Jeff, if you'll go, forward one more. So let me say, and I've met with Regent West and Regent Brody on this. So we've been working with our financial advisor on refunding opportunities. And given that the Regents meet quarterly, several months ago, it seemed timely for, with the rapidly changing bond market environment and the financial market in general, it seemed appropriate for us to bring this to you so that we would be nimble and be able to refinance or refund these bonds if the opportunities presented themselves. And you can click, Jeff, down to the next one. So what has to trigger a refunding from the state's perspective is it has to produce a minimum net present value savings of 5%. And so back to a month ago, that there was a possibility of doing that on several of our bond series. Unfortunately, with the changing situation in the financial markets, that is no longer possible. And I'm not sure it will become possible over the next year, but this action has a year authorization for us to move should we have the possibility to save this 5%. And next slide. So the two issues, the first one is the Honors College and International Center. It has an outstanding principal of 23 million with a maturity of 2033. And then next slide, Jeff. The Downing Student Union renovation that has 19 million in outstanding principal with a 2032 maturity. So again, it's just interesting how things can certainly change in a short period of time. I don't expect for us to have the opportunity for the refunding, but should this resolution or this action item would give us the opportunity, working with our financial advisor, to move appropriately. So Regent West, that's all that I have, unless there are questions.
I understand your position, and we're all interested in debt saving anytime we can, but I do not read this resolution to provide you with that flexibility. This appears to me to be a one-time authorization and not a blanket authorization for a period of time. And I certainly agree with refinancing it. We could save 5%. That's not my issue. I'm just not sure this resolution gives you what you need.
Okay.
Recommend the change in language.
That's what I was looking about. We passed this resolution. I'm not sure that you still have that flexibility.
We asking for the flexibility for the remainder of the year.
Yes. Okay. And I don't think that this resolution does.
What if we added at the end, if needed for the remainder of 2023?
I can add some context to that. We talked to Dexter on the litigation side of it. They said the resolution itself technically does not have anything to it, but the board action item mentions the 1 year from the day it was approved. So that's why the resolution does not have the 1 year timeline, but the action item does.
I don't see anything in here about a 1 year option. And it's not that I'm opposed to it.
That it does.
What if we added that language to the,
If you added to the end something like, for a period of 1 year, if a net savings of 5% could be realized. If you added that to the language, I think that you would be covered.
Happy to accept that friendly provision.
Yeah.
that's one.
To both.
It's 1 year, I mean, it's a 1 year period to get a date.
It's in the.
It's in the
action
facts.
item.
Yeah.
Of the action.
I see that now, and I had underlined it earlier, but in the resolution per se, I think it needs to be.
I think he was saying a legal issue.
Sorry.
I thought you were saying legally, the resolution should be one thing, and they were clarifying it in what action. But maybe a legal issue around the language necessary in the resolution itself. I'm not a lawyer. I play one on TV.
We had the same question. Have that language, and the advice we received was it doesn't have to have that, but as long as we put it into the board action item, then it should be fine. And then the 5% savings is in our debt policy, so they also work together.
I'd be more comfortable if it was in the resolution.
Okay.
Yeah, and I believe we as a committee add that to the motion, correct? Correct. So will we add to the end, if needed for a period of 1 year, if 5% savings could be realized?
I like that.
And you can actually say 5% or less, consistent with the policy.
Yes.
Consistent with policy.
And that then ties all three of the documents together.
Okay. Okay.
And the only other recommendation is, I would hope you all do this at the beginning of your presentation. So that we don't do this, so that she always has the flexibility, because the market's going to change constantly. So missing a period, do it at the beginning, then they have that.
I was buoyed by the fact that the date of maturity is 2033 and 2032. That used to feel like a long ways away, getting that closer now. Yes.
The Regent West, are we able to add that language as an amendment? Or would we want to change it and go over it at the next meeting? I mean, I don't expect the markets to change enough in the next month.
I would propose that we just pass it to the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
If that's okay with everybody.
I would move that we move action item FB3 and FB4 to the full board meeting next month for final passage as a full board resolution.
We have a second? Okay, all in favor? Oh, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Not opposed. The only thing is, I understand what we're doing and it makes sense. But markets are crazy, and I just want to make sure that they have an option if something were crazier to happen. If they have this opportunity prior to the.
Yeah.
As long as we know there's a
Have a special
procedure.
call meeting.
I don't think it's gonna happen, but again, markets are just crazy. I don't want them to lose the ability to make the adjustment if it's such an opportunity.
So I don't think anybody on this committee would be opposed to a special call meeting and would actually help and encourage the authorization of that in whatever, I can't remember the exact rule, but I think we would all be in favor of that.
I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge that so that she has full flexibility, in the opportunity presents itself.
Right, I agree with that. I think all of us would make ourselves available for a special call meeting if it became due to market conditions. All right, so 3 and 4 will be passed to the regular board. Unless a special meeting is necessary in the interim. So we're gonna move on to action item number 5, and this is a request seeking approval for the initiation of various capital projects.
So Regent West, I'm going to pass the baton to Brian Russell, our Chief Facilities Officer, who will take us through the next 2 items.
Good morning.
Before we move on, I just comment and say, Susan, thank you again for the meetings you did this week with various members of the board, finance and budget committee, and thank you for being available today. He's going above and beyond. We really appreciate your availability during this time.
Thank you.
Meetings like that one, so like Brian.
Yes, thanks.
Good morning again. This action item, conversations about our asset preservation funds that have been provided to us from the state of Kentucky. To remind the board, it's about $34 million per year with a matching requirement of a little over $5 million from university resources. We had approved in June 10th projects that we have gotten started and executed. This is a procedural item that is required as the first step, is that any projects over, regardless of the funds, of $1 million needs to be approved by the board before we are really allowed to submit to the state of Kentucky to ensure that these projects are eligible for reimbursement out of the asset preservation funds. And so quickly, these projects, they do align with our 2000, or really our strategic plan and our master plan. And I've provided a list, but in the action item, it kind of describes a little more about these projects in particular. And I wanted to point out to the board that these are up to amounts because we've not done the work necessary to establish the complete scope of work or obtain the estimates for each project. So this is authorization for us to utilize asset preservation funds for the renovation for the board hall, renovation of the Kentucky Museum, Jody Richards Hall, renovation center for research and development, and modernize our campus access control, and then EA Villarino roof project. With that, I might entertain any questions.
Brian, I know we had, and again, I thank you all for the meeting the other day. I just have a couple of questions based on information that I got after our meeting. Are you confident in the up to amounts that it will not exceed? Any of those projects will not exceed the up to amount?
Well, what's interesting about projects and cost today, I feel confident that the prices that we have today or the information that I have, that we will be very close or up to these amounts of money. But that's all determined in the feasibility study and how the projects are scoped. For instance, when you're designing and presenting, or let's use Gordon Ford or Gordon Wilson Hall, we primarily want to do a feasibility study, investigate and modernize the accessibility to a building that years of that I've been here, there's been a real desire for the university to
to upfit that building so that all students have access to the top of the hill. We continue to do that as a university throughout campus. Our hillside restoration, our hilltop restoration project demonstrates that, new accessible doors. But that particular facility, which serves our students, does not have an elevator. And most of the activity in that building happens on not the first floor, but the floor above. So that's one of the major things that we would like to investigate in a historic building. Can we add an elevator to the building, modernize the restrooms, make them appropriate ADA compliant restrooms, and then improve the access into the building? We're making a stab, a good educated guess of what that might cost. But if it's more or less, we will determine that, and then if we need to increase, we can ask that as we go through, because there are multiple steps in the process that evaluate the cost estimate.
Okay, and my clarity on that was really determined by if we're authorizing an up to amount, but yet no scope of work has been done and no estimates have been provided. I was just curious on the methodology of that.
Well, we do it quite often. We're developing a project, and sometimes projects we're using our experience. We know what an elevator would cost normally. And so we're kind of doing, it starts out with contingency and a gross number. And we actually do that on the next slide. We actually do needs assessment all across the campus. So we're basing this up on our experience. And we feel like these values are adequate for this request. And again, this has given us the authority, authorization from our board to move forward to do this work and let you know that we're doing this work on behalf of the university.
Just one final thing. Do you feel presently, so present day, based on the renovation request scheduled for new construction, and any other thing that we might approve, say in FB6 or the scope of FB6 beyond this item, it'll save me a second question, that you have adequate maintenance staff and good relationship on contract with Sodexo to make sure that these buildings are maintained at the level that would be sufficient for normal operation?
That's an interesting question, because in asset preservation funding, we do not utilize maintenance or we cannot.
I'm sorry, that wasn't my question. My question was, do you feel, I'm not talking about asset preservation. It's a question of, do you feel that if all of this money is expended for these projects and other buildings are built, new buildings are built, do you have adequate funding for the maintenance needed?
The answer is yes, and here's why. When you have deferred resource or deferred and older buildings, it takes more work and effort to keep our buildings operational for the institution. We have done some really good things by raising some older buildings, building back new buildings. And so what we're doing is creating, by modernizing, capacity for the university, which is really to our advantage for the long term.
Thanks.
Just add to Dave's question. I think I know the answer, but just for everybody's sake. And if the amount runs over, you come back.
Absolutely.
There you go. Okay. Because that's the other part of what Dave's asking, I think, is you're operating, you have your process works. And it's where you just come back into this.
So to ask a question, I think there's been a strategic philosophy here, how things rise to the level of this asset preservation versus what raises these projects up to a level to go from state dollars with this versus setting aside and hoping for dollars later. This is a more.
Well, in 2006 and 2007, the state of Kentucky did a facilities assessment. We funded ourselves $100,000 facilities assessment, which is now computerized, which basically measures our facilities based upon age and kind of a broad, high level. But what it tells you is that we have exceeded the useful life of building systems and components within the building. This particular use board is almost 100 years old. Almost all the systems within that building have exceeded their normal useful life. What it tells us is that we as a university throughout our history, we have maintained and exceeded, far exceeded in a lot of our buildings. Our average age today is well over 50 years per building. So most systems that are within the building need to be replaced. The real key is, and these are kind of different requests, the key is how do you predict which one's going to fail? And that's an impossibility. But we do know by good maintenance of records and how many calls are done in a particular building, which one are more problematic or take more resources to keep operation.
In addition to that, I'll add, if you remember on the campus master plan, there also is an examination of facility usage, building usage. So I'm actually speaking to the next item, action item a little bit. When you think about the most desperate needed facility to be renovated on our campus, it was explicit in that study that it's Jerry Hall, period, no doubt. So that's one of the reasons. That was the first request last summer. And then think about what comes next. Academic complex is right there, and that's why. And the Dean of Health and Human Services excited about that. Other facilities also in there. If you remember, third on there was EST, followed very quickly by College High Hall. So those are the prioritizations. The other is the combination of tornado, straight line wind damage we've had. The digital roof issue has been an issue before I arrived. And watching it, patching it, using masking tape, duct tape, whatever other things that Brian could find. And we're just about to the end of the ability to patch it. And where we don't want to wind up is during commencement and it rains, we have to move big garbage cans onto the floor of Diddle Arena to catch the water, which is exactly what happened at Murray Stadium in the basketball season. It's just not a look for the institution. The same thing, that same thing is true with all of our roofs on campus. We've been looking very closely at that. Stop that kind of thing.
And this asset preservation funding is very timely because we are putting on Jody Richards Hall. We are this summer putting another roof on that building. It's 20 years old, but we're needing to do that. We're doing one on South Campus. We've completed one on the IEB building. So roofs are really important to the asset preservation. Gordon Wilson Hall actually has a fairly new roof that we've already installed. So if you can keep a building dry, you can maintain the interior environment. So it's really important. We have, as a university, spent over $1 million in resources on Diddle Arena. Diddle Arena, this particular project is the dome specific biggest piece that we had left, but we have been, what I would say, chipping away at roof replacement on a building that was built 1963. So we are working steadily, and we do that with a lot of our projects, is that we do it in phases, and we're actually following a plan by THP Inc. out of Cincinnati, a structural engineering firm, who has laid out, these are the things we need to do. We just had an extraordinary event happen in December, January that has substantially changed the condition of the roof. Today, shows you the photos, you would go, oh, wow. It is dramatic. So we have filed an insurance claim. We're in negotiations with an insurance company. I do not feel that would fully cover any kind of, but we're working through that. It's a process. It always takes time. But it won't mitigate us replacing partial portion. Like, we're going to need some funds. And that's why it's important that I'm providing today the full amount if we needed it. I do not expect it to cost $7.
Good.
Getting ready to bring that 50-year average down too. That's what they're.
Anybody have any other questions for Brian? Then entertain a motion that the board approve the asset preservation capital projects as listed. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed. Our next action item, FP6, I think Brian, you were going to address that as well. This is secure capital.
Yes. Statutorily, we are required as a university every 2 years, they call it a capital plan. We call it a 6-year capital plan, but it's really a needs assessment of the university. And so what we like to provide to the board as part of the process, because we actually submit, it's an electronic software now. We used to have to do it all manually, but it loads up all of past projects, current projects, new projects into a software that we are required to submit by tax day tomorrow, April 15th. We'll push the button on that submittal today. There are steps and procedures that allow it to open back up, make any kinds of changes as necessary. We would not do that before we brought the list in front of the board for your review and hopefully approve. But in the 6-year capital plan, any project that is what I call general fund or the state bond request, we prioritize. And so we bring in front of you today the top 5 projects that we have listed in order. And the list provided to you all also, that is in a priority order as we see. Kind of done through committee and conversations with the community university.
So if you recall, as we worked through the legislative process 2 years ago, the language used by the legislature in the capital appropriations process was first priority, and then there was a chance we were going to get first and second priority innovation projects. They don't add, it is not a process where they come visit with us and ask. This is how we've selected. And so if we were so fortunate to get another capital project from the legislature, it would be academic complex. And if we were to get 2, we've got plus those Potter facilities. No one can brag on that. While I'm thankful for what we call the business building, we've been working on for quite a while. The last time we received a capital project from the state was 2014. So these are not every year or every other year type events, but we work hard. Certainly.
This information that we submit also is authorization. This process, the 6-year capital plan, really just provides the university with the authorization if funds become available for any of these projects, that we have authorization from the state to proceed with that project. And so there's no funds attached to this request. It's a needs assessment for the university, and we're seeking to approve.
They have questions for Brian? Discussion. And I will entertain a motion to approve the 2024 to 2030 6-year capital plan for Western Kentucky University.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And I think we have one information item from our internal auditor, Mr. Bruce Weissman.
Thank you, Regent West.
believe we've got a PowerPoint coming up. Yep. While we're waiting on that, I'd just like to thank everyone at the university for being so welcoming. I've been here for 3.5 months, and I'll tell you in my presentation today, I've spoken with more than 30 different leaders across campus, and they've been very productive conversations. So I'd just like to thank all the leaders and the Regents. You've all been supportive and been available. So thank you very much. All right, so we've got a quarterly update today. I'd like to keep it to this framework. I'll talk about some projects I've been working on, an update on our hotline, some other updates, and then where are we going from here. First of all, with the projects, we've completed 2 projects since January. The first was the President's Travel and Entertainment expenses. That is a project that is required by his employment contract with you all, with the board. When I completed that review, we found 2 low-risk observations, which is a very good audit, as you can say. And I would really like to highlight that in my work, there was a culture of doing the right thing. That came from the president, that came from Susan Howarth and both of their teams. When I had questions about transactions, the answer was, let's do the right thing. So I saw that in the evidence I looked at, but even when I saw things that I had questions about, it was always, let's do the right thing. So I want to commend all of them for that, setting a great tone of top at the university. The second project was a special license plate program review. This is required by KRS 186.164 section 14. It basically says if you have one of those Western Kentucky license plates, part of that money, the state collects it, sends it to the university, and that we use that to fund scholarships as we were supposed to. I did that audit and confirmed that about $48,000 worth of money was received in fiscal year 22, and that we spent it on scholarships. Finally, I just want to give you all a heads up. Upcoming project I think we'll be starting here in the next couple of weeks is looking at undergraduate admissions. I haven't started planning that yet, but just an example of things to think about. You're looking at processes with admissions, right? This could be recruiting new students. This could be processing applications. This could be converting admitted students to enrolled students, how all those processes are and how they're working. So I'm going to work with Dr. Ethan Logan and his team in admissions. We'll figure out what the scope looks like, and we'll go ahead and commence that on. With the university's anonymous hotline, so far this year, calendar year 2023, we've had 2 hotline calls. Both have been resolved and closed. I would say there was no significant items that needs the attention of the board, and one of those came in since January. I would just like to remind everyone, if you see something, say something. President Camoni, you asked me what the hotline number was last time, so we're ready. All right. You'll probably see this every time going forward. You can report online through a written format, or you can call this number, talk to a human. They will put the information in a report, and it'll come to me for review. If you feel more comfortable talking to me, there's my contact information. Other updates. At our last meeting, Regent Spiller asked me to do a internal audit resource analysis. I did that. I identified 10 benchmark institutions. I looked at staff sizes. I looked at structures. I looked at salaries. Put that together, came up with a recommendation. I think internal audit needs a little bit more resources. And when presented that to leadership and to the committee, everyone said, yes, let's do that. So thank you all for that support. In addition, I looked at and reviewed some hotline procedures as those calls came in. I said, how do we do things a little bit better? How do we structure things a little bit better, make it more efficient? How do I identify roles and responsibilities? Made sure we got all those things lined out. Who's going to do what? Finally, one thing I want to focus on is increasing campus awareness. Just let people know that I'm here, internal audit is here, and what do we do? I was invited to speak at the Strategic Plan Implementation Committee on March 29th. We had a great discussion about this, how that ties to strategy in our plan. So thank you for the invite, Bruce Schulte.
really appreciate that. So that's what we've been doing. We've been doing a lot of things of building a internal audit department here at Western. Finally, another shout out to John Mark and his team in communications and marketing. They really helped me put a refresh on the internal audit reports. This is just the cover. I think they look really sharp. And I don't have those skills. So thank you for making us look better, John Mark. Finally, looking ahead for the next couple of months, I believe our next committee meeting is June 2nd. Here's what I plan to be working on between now and then. I've done a lot of work. I mentioned talking with people the last 6 weeks or so during our annual risk assessment. And that's there to just say what risks are at Western Kentucky, which ones are significant, which ones do we need to worry about the most. Again, talked with more than 30 people. I asked 34 people to talk and 33 said yes. That's 97%. That's fantastic. Those same 34 people, 27 of them filled out a survey. That's 80%. That's a fantastic response rate. So again, thank you all to management leadership at the university. I'm working to analyze those results. I shared them with the president's cabinet this week, but with the time crunch, I didn't want to rush that presentation with you all. So we'll talk about that at a future meeting. And while I'm analyzing those results, I'm going to put together the FY24 audit plan. So we've got a set number of resources in our department. Where are we going to spend our time? What projects on? Hopefully we get the most bang for our buck. So I want to put that list of audit projects together for you all to review and approve in accordance with the charter at our next meeting in June. So stay tuned for that. We're in the process of filling our senior internal auditor position. Interviews are ongoing. It's still open and it's out there. So if you know someone who might be interested in that job, get their applications in ASAP. But we've got a great pool and we're working to fill that spot. Finally, again, increasing campus awareness. I'll be talking with Staff Senate. Regent Brinkley, thank you for inviting me to come speak at Staff Senate on May 3rd. Again, we'll get the word out some more there too. So that's where we're at. That's where we're going. What else can I answer?
Filling a position that wasn't filled before. It's great to have Bruce on board, and I was at the strategic committee meeting that Bruce Schulte chairs, and thought that was a great meeting, and this guy brings a lot of different perspectives to that. We talked a lot about risk. Good. I'm thrilled you're on board.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Oh, and you all, some of you will recall, and those of you who weren't on board will remember one of our first conversations, was it 5 years ago? Almost 5 years ago. Was around risk assessment and what we've actually managed to do. And I think that we'll like to spend some time on this in the retreat. Spent a great deal of time on risk mitigation. So remember, we had quite a number of reds and then yellow. We reduced the number of reds, and they're really all intercorrelated. It's mostly around the relationship between enrollment and finance. We all know is the primary challenge for higher education across the nation. So I'm proud of the work and how we're utilizing risk management as a tool for leadership and not just a box to check. So continue that.
Real quick, on behalf of Staff Senate, thanks for accepting the invitation. And I want to add, we have had outstanding participation in the Staff Senate with campus leaders. President, Susan, we had this week, just this week, the HR staff, Andrea Sherrill, and Mindy Hutchins. They came and made an outstanding presentation. Ronaldo was there this week on behalf of Susan's office and made a presentation. If you are or have an interest at all in hearing how leadership thinks and how things are done on this campus, feel free to attend virtually Staff Senate meetings, because there are outstanding presentations that are being made in those meetings, and there's a way for people to ask questions and get them answered. that is very effective. So thanks again, Bruce, for coming. We're looking forward to it.
Thank you. Great presentation. And that concludes business of finance and budget.
All right, well, thank you very much, and we're going to take a 10-minute break. And we will be back at 10:40. Yes. All right, it's 10:41, so we will resume and go into our Student Affairs Committee. Chair Thomas had to be out of town today. Can't be with us. But Dr. Ethan Lufkin is.
Thank you, Chair Bell. I appreciate it very much. We just have an information item for today. And it's a fun departure from our student presentations. We're going to talk about student program, the Stop Out Recovery Program, which is a partnership between the Division of Enrollment Student Experience and Academic Affairs. And it is a humble beginning of a nice grant program initiated a couple of years ago, and he's evolved into a project, passion project of academic advising in our registrar's office as we look for students who have stopped out in their process of completing their education. That's financial, whether that's personal, any of the opportunities that may have arrested their educational experience, and how we can bring those people back in to finish their degrees. So I'm going to turn it over to Chris Jensen, Dr. Jennifer Hammonds, to present on our Stop Out Recovery.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate the Board of Regents letting us present on this today. It's a very fun topic to talk about. Jennifer and I have now presented on this nationally twice. So it's been kind of fun to see what's going on. So a couple of years ago, it was 2019, we ended up starting this. I got an email from President Caboni saying, hey, we needed to be involved in a national project with IHEP, which is the Institute for Higher Education Policy. So it was one of those fun voluntold emails of you will do this. And I greatly appreciate it because it has been a lot of fun since. So what we ended up looking at was students who have taken hours at WKU, but never finished their degree. And we called IR and asked for a list of students. We created I think we went back 2016 through 2019 and looked at how many different students had stopped out during that period. Anybody want to take a guess how many that was? All right, we started with a list of just over 4,000. So we started looking at all of those individuals to see what their individual circumstances were. And we created a university team to try to come together to help all of these students. So we brought together advising, the registrar's office, financial aid, institutional research, and then representation from each of our academic colleges so that they could assist in this. What we wanted to do is create more of an individualized package for each student, because we know when you're calling them to say, hey, do you want to come back to WKU? They really care about three things. How long is it going to take? How much it's going to cost? And well, it's pretty much two, actually. We'll just go two things. How long is it going to take and how much it's going to cost? But we wanted to give them a full package, and we were telling them the financial aid part of it, the exact credit hours they need, and everything else. So we ran all of our students through the National Clearinghouse to see if they've completed a degree anywhere else, because we know some have transferred out and went to other institutions. Whittled our list down a little more. And then we wanted to make sure they were in good academic standing and 90+ hours, because we know that's pretty quick. They would only have a little bit left to get to that 120 to get a degree. At that point, we really started looking and diving in to see what can we do. And we started looking at substitution, academic renewal, policy changes that have happened. So I know we ended up changing our foreign language or our world language policy. We also changed the academic renewal policy so we could help GPAs for students and get them up to that 2.0 to be able to get them the degree and be able to complete at WKU.
Before you, just a question.
Yeah.
You said 4,000. Was it 4,000 that met this criteria, or was it?
Well, it's just 4,000 that stopped.
4,000.
And we started.
That.
Yeah, and we'll get to those numbers in a minute. Jennifer's going to talk to what the actual list was, so I don't want to ruin her part of the presentation.
She was standing over ready.
Yeah, she gets all the good
and I was
numbers.
trying to get her on the front line.
tell me in the years, how many years is 4,000?
So 2016 to 2019 is this particular project that we focused on, that give you some statistics on.
That
But
was all. There's 4,000 total, or 4,000, like he asked, 4,000.
4,000 stopped out of all completely just,
Just for that specific time period.
yes.
So
They're gonna
4,000
narrow it down.
students between 2016
So
and
in
2019.
3 years, 4,000.
All right, so then we began outreach, and this has been interesting. We created some mass emails. These are some of the flyers. We worked with the communication department or the and marketing to get all of our materials together. Just talking about re-enrolling, sending out those mass emails. And sadly, we did not get a lot of uptick from the emails. We ended up finding out this had to be a very personalized thing. This kind of seems like spam or me calling to say your car insurance needs to be extended or your car warranty. They just think, oh, this is just something that comes and they don't want to talk. But when you do that personalized outreach, you tell them the full package. That's really where we started seeing a lot of students starting to partake and wanting to be involved. We also have our adult learner website. We made it super simple. If a student just gave us their name and a way to contact them, we would reach back out and end up talking to them and create that personalized package for each student for them to complete their degree. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer about the data.
To answer your question, or actually to ask a question based on what you said, do you know how many students nationwide have stopped out who have some college no degree? You can't answer yet. Does anybody want to take a guess on how big that number is? What is it?
39 million.
Oh, you're not supposed to know the answer. That's correct. So COVID, it was 31. They saw an uptick after COVID to 39 million. And so anybody want to take a guess at what the number is in Kentucky? Guessed yet? So it's 560,000. So we have students, so we have an opportunity here to not only take care of the WKU students who have started, but who maybe have started somewhere else. So that's kind of some of the future things that we'll be looking at. So if you look at the number of students who stopped out without a degree, we talked about that 4,000 number. So once we ran that through the clearinghouse, we discovered, and this clearinghouse is our enrollment repository. So anytime we have enrollment at the institution or degree completion, that's where we load all of that information. And so that is where we can gather then if a student did transfer out of WKU, where they went, what they're pursuing, or any of that. So you'll notice that we had 1,000 students who were enrolled, so of the 4,000, 3,000 did not go anywhere else in this since 2019. We had 1,000 students who were enrolled elsewhere who had not yet completed, and 142 students who stopped out did go on to finish at WKU. So once we started looking at that 3,000 number for this particular project, it seemed a little too large scale at that point in time. We wanted to see if we could get some traction, get some student stories out there. So we thought, what else can we do to narrow that number down just a little bit for WKU and to be successful in this project? So we focused on the 1,120 who didn't enroll elsewhere, and we got to the 1,120 by adding the residency requirement. So WKU can award a degree if a student doesn't have 30 hours at WKU. So that then took that 3,000 number down to 1,100 for that particular data. So, and you'll be pleased to know that out of the 1,100, we have now awarded 208 bachelor degrees. We've awarded 12 associate degrees, and 153 students have returned to WKU. Now, what you'll keep in mind is some of those students who earned degrees have returned to WKU to do so, but this is individual student count, so we didn't count them twice in the data set. So, and this is only 2019. What you have to remember is we have students prior to 2016 that obviously have stopped out, and we have students since 2019 who have done that. So this spring in particular, we don't have any numbers for you to go on, but I'll tell you for spring, we are going to award probably 25 from students that we've contacted that may or may not be in this data set. We pulled some new numbers going back to 2013 to try to get some what numbers might look like for a 10-year period.
Any of these that were awarded for spring, we may hit 30 some. Our biggest problem is the time. So like we talked about with email, students move, the phone numbers are no longer good. The biggest struggle now is finding the student that attended WKU. And I would say that each of you in here know students who have started, whether that be at WKU or not. We want you to help tell our story for what we're doing and the good work that we're doing in this. So future plans, we've got some policies that need revised. A lot of these programs like ours are not successful if we can't rely on the work that a student has done, whether that be in the workforce or so we want to expand our credit for prior learning. We have a lot of faculty and staff that are going to be doing the training in order to be able to review some of that portfolio and those things. So we have that going on. We're going to have to do this at the end of every semester and make this an ongoing effort for the project or a state project. Like, you know, we all know, and most of you probably in this room know, the state initiative to get to 60 by 30. So 60% of Kentuckians, they want to have a degree by 2030. So this is WKU's part in that. And so here we are doing that with Dr. Kudali's help here. Graduate, this doesn't just affect the undergrad population, it does come at graduate also. And all of these new certificates and some of that stuff are going to be very beneficial that we can at least award some type of credential to these students. What you have to remember in this particular data, we let students get the degree that they were pursuing. They may be close to an associate's degree, they could have earned a certificate. So we haven't done any of that additional data mining to determine they may not get the degree that they started with, but can we offer them some other type of credential? So that heavy lift kind of starts over the summer and fall for us to be able to do that. We want to work with philanthropy to tell a student story, see if we can get some scholarship dollars for that, because as you look to recruit these students back, finances is a big key, and we want to see if we can do anything to offset that for a student. And again, continue to showcase WKU's program. We have presented twice already about the program. We are on slate to present again in July and next April. So what we're doing is making some news. And so I don't know if anybody has any questions, but we're happy to answer those. And if you have anything else.
I mean, I want to thank everybody in this room. We've had a lot of involvement from others. So we've had deans providing scholarship dollars. Dean Brown, him and I went to somebody's front yard and awarded a degree to an individual. So that was fun. We took pictures. We had Dean Murphy, she awarded a degree in her building. We made a huge thing out of that. We've had Amy Cesare, she has been our biggest recruiter. She's done different videos on it and then ends up calling us. So for a while, she was sending us an email about once a week. Hey, I talked to this individual. Can you help them out? So we're hoping everybody in here continues to help us with that work and let us know about students who have done the work and deserve the degree, and we want to make sure it gets supported.
Bridget, if I could add, first, thank you both for your leadership and taking this seriously. And one of the things that is most concerning in higher education is around the relationship between debt, no degree, and career. And so what we know is that if you come to college and you leave significant debt, not get a credential, that is an anchor around your neck. And what I'm not willing to do is for us not to do everything in our power not to have that be the case for every student who comes through this institution. We don't care about recruiting freshmen. I care about recruiting students who are going to graduate. That's the 80-60. But one of the other things we have to do is we know life sometimes slaps folks in the face. And we have to understand that stopping out is actually not a failure. Stopping out is taking a pause, and that we have to help them find both the on-ramp and the ability to be successful, and the creativity and the willingness to process where you say, look, we have some number of students who have over 120 hours. How many?
10 years, 2,000 for the last 10 years.
So we have 2,000. You're gonna watch my blood pressure go up.
We're gonna
2,000 students who've completed 120 hours. That's the number of hours required for a degree at WKU. What that means is in their junior and senior years, they didn't get the advice necessary to be successful and get a degree that they had already perhaps earned. And so one of the things that we're going to go back and do is we're going to help them understand that we know you were pursuing X, and you didn't get across the finish line. But by the way, you did so much work. You've earned this degree over here. Would you like it? And or you're a couple of courses short. Why don't you do one online course this fall, one this spring, and you can come to commencement in the spring, and then get even more creative. And you think about folks who've left a long time ago. There was one example that I think of in particular, someone who's had this remarkable career in engineering, had done everything you can imagine. In his career, he was a little bit short of a degree. I didn't even know he was short of a degree. He's one of our supporters, a donor, has a fabulously successful company. You know what? Over a career, he probably had some learning in that life that we could award some credit for, which we did. So Bud Lane received his degree in December, and we celebrated with him. This is work that's crucial to us meeting our mission. And if we're not setting up folks to succeed, then shame on us. It's one of the reasons we're going to take another look at advising in the junior and senior year, make sure we're doing what we need to do there. But this is life-altering work for the folks that we managed to get back. And so I'm passionate about it. I'm proud about it. And it is a national example for how universities can meet their obligation to their students and their alumni. Remember, you can be an alumnus without being a graduate to get those degrees. So I just want to say kudos to you. It's awesome.
We should all like it when our president gets his passion out.
Real quick, and I don't tell many stories, and I don't plan to do this one. We had a student, we have several that graduate every year that have worked at our television or radio stations over the 4-year period and have gotten great experience. Many times when they graduate, they go straight to work. And in this case, we had a group of 4 that year that went straight to work for various technical projects for ESPN. And when they revisited campus, all 4 of them together one day, holding 4 national Emmy Awards. And we were going to post on social media about that. We did not realize that one of them had not received their degree. And it was over 1 3-hour class. We didn't realize it at the time because they went to work, they're doing good work. And so I will tell, and I don't mind saying this, I believe he values that degree now that came in the mail while he was working the French Open as much as he does that anyway. And I think the impact of this can't be overstated. And it's to know that story and to know this young man and see the look on his face when he found out that could happen and how Jennifer stuck with that. Tremendous impact. I think it's wonderful that we can see that dozens and dozens times over with just a little persistence. So I think it's incredibly valuable.
I just wanted, I was just thinking about the scholarship celebration we had last night, and 2,000 people. It'd be great if you could find out those 2,000 people, what the cost would be for us to cover, sort of even discuss the financial issue, discuss it. Why don't you send it to everybody who's at the dinner? And say, would you like to make a contribution to help 2,000 people get their degrees? And I bet you'd find a lot of people would be more than happy to financially take care of that. And you can, so you take the money off, say, we'll do it online, you can make this pretty easy.
I think this is an initiative worth talking about, and it's worth noting too that, as you intimated, the pandemic has accelerated this, along with the need, new skills, reskilling people for a knowledge information economy, which is totally different than prior to 2008 we had. So it is part of our mission, should be. And a statistic that I read recently, and Tim, I don't know if you read it or anybody else, but I think even now, over 50% of higher education students are non-traditional. The days when some of us were young and we were all 18 to 22 years old going to college, and that was who was on college campuses, that's over. We need to be identifying this other population, along with going after what's the percentage of high school graduates in Kentucky not going to, it's over 50%.
53% of high school graduates don't pursue any credential after high school.
So there's a couple of populations there that need to be in our radar.
And I think
Right while we're doing this.
I do think our challenge is with all of these folks, if this is a national shift in perspective, is we have to continue to articulate the value of a college education. And I'm sorry we're losing that battle. We're not, it's not a WKU battle. This is a higher education industry battle that we've lost. And we're losing it in the media. And not ideologically, we're just losing it in the media across all ideologies. And with policymakers and leaders in our state capitals, we're losing it with political leadership. And to be candid, there are some folks in our high schools who are providing, I would consider, awful advice because we're having that conversation now.
In spite of ample evidence telling us that this new economy requires people that have critical thinking, who can be creative, who can be team players, who need a broad background, who need range, if you will, in these new jobs that are required in this new economy. So, yeah, we got to do a better job.
If I would ask you, if for a $40,000 investment, you made a $40,000 investment, that I would give you a return of $2 million, would you make that investment? Absolutely. We have to help families understand that's what higher education is. Thank you to Provost Fisher for boiling that down for us. That's his talking point, right? And so we've got to convince families that it is worth the investment in you and your future.
And the discussion around the certificates and some of the other approaches to, micro-credentialing. Because you're losing it on the employer side as well. Right? People are saying, I don't think I need someone that's agreed. But part of that is the demand of what they're needing. It's so specialized, but we could address that and still get them a credential that doesn't have to wait for 4 years for you to get into the job to do train. So this is just so fun.
And connected to that, and I'm really proud of the work. Everybody thinks about the new battery plant and Envision coming to town. We have a deep partnership already with them, and everybody's like, oh, well, they need engineers. They need everything. They need communication professionals, they need resource professionals, and we're partnering with them for a discount, not just for employees, for families. And as they hire workers, if they do not have a credential or college degree, they're partnering with us to build that into their employment pipeline. So that you start with us right out of high school. Well, during the next 4 years with us, you're going to get that credential and that training you need alongside the work.
And one of the, I always think about the success of UPS and Wood Golden, that they did it with the University of Louisville, and they actually offer classes at midnight. I'm not suggesting any kind of saying that addressing it and meeting the needs of your students is really what's going to be important, that we be flexible. Yeah.
On it, when we want it, where we want it.
That's exactly right.
And I'm assuming since we're having this talk that after 2023, we look aggressively address. And 90 hours. So
We have so many over 120.
That's the
Like,
thing.
I
That's
can't
what's
even
important.
get past the 90.
what do they
300
say is the reason? I mean, I know COVID, so take the COVID out of it. Is it money? I mean, are they going and working and their employers are saying, we don't care if you have a degree or not?
I think that's part of it.
I mean, I think that's the part that's challenging with this. Everybody has a unique story. So it could be money, it could be family issues. When you call them, they have 50 million stories. Each person's an individual, and that's why we're really having to do individual work. And it takes a lot of time to get these done. And it's really because each one has a different story and a different reason. So we're not actually finding it'd be simple to say, oh, all of it's finances or all of it was this, but it's not. Yeah.
And that's why I focused on this, like right now, looking at who's over 120. I mean, you look at the people who are sitting at 90. I think there are roughly about 900 in the last 10 years that have 108 grader. So we're just slowly trying to get through that, because 90 even at this point may not be the best number that we need to use institutionally, so that we can get some more accomplishment, get some more student stories out there. And then the 90 people, the credit student 90 will likely hear that and just come back. So if we can target, smaller populations of that, I think we'll see more growth from that. So.
But there is a movement away from just a process industrial error. You got to jump through these hoops too. I'm interested in the outcome. I want that credential that you earned, and I have some assurance that you can do this job. So there are some people who want to do away with credits altogether. And that's going to be a problem before that happens, but it is more about outcomes than anything.
Institutions create policies for a range of reasons. Some of them are self-interested for faculty. Some of them are self-interested for the institution as a whole. Some of them are to benefit students, but we have policies in place that aren't in the best interest of student completion sometimes. And that has to do what happens to credit hours over time. Is integrated to accreditation now. Some of it has to do with poor performance in a single semester and what that means for your persistence. Some of it, and sometimes that's all caused by, the story that sticks with me is a young person who lost a parent, single parent, and they obviously did not do well. They kept trying to go and they failed out. Well, how do you help that person understand? Well, of course you did, and that's okay. Let's get you back and get restarted. And then you look at the policy, and the policy is, well, no, you got to sit out for X number of months, right? And so that's shame on us, and we've got to do that work too. We got them fixed.
That one's
all right. There we go.
If you're over 60 hours, you don't get to sit out at all.
Another thing, so if they have, how much money does it take for them to say that they have graduated? I mean, is that they pay for their credit hours and then they get the graduation, or they have to pay for it?
So we do have an application for graduation. Is that what you're asking? And it's $50.
You can put that in your proposal. Just
We have, yeah.
So
it's really just.
We do have
It
them
just makes it
apply to graduation, because we can't really afford them without asking. But yeah.
And we can waive that though. Make it free. Done. There we go.
It seems to me like this, as someone not educated in this field, that the recent dropouts would be a real target area. Because once they've been out for a few years, they've taken on other obligations, maybe family, they're sitting their job, they don't have the time to come back, quit their job, come back, whatever. But the recent dropouts look to me like before they incur these obligations.
The sooner we can get them back, the better.
That's my
So,
point,
yes,
right?
absolutely. Agree.
Some of them, their jobs are going away though, too.
Yeah.
And think about the relationship between this though and retention. And so what we've managed to do is drive the number of stopouts down as our retention rate goes up, which means you can do an even more targeted effort. Now, the question then becomes, why are they stopping out? Is it really finances? And that's the easy answer, but that's a lot of times it's not the actual reason. And so that's where it takes the individual work. It's looking at your academic performance in class. And then for us as an institution, if they're not able to perform academically, is it because they weren't prepared? They weren't prepared, did we get them to the head? Or is it because they became distracted and didn't perform? Or engaged in other things? Or they had to work so much to pay that they couldn't get to class, and it just, so figuring all of that out is also helpful on the front end, because we got to, again, that 80% retention rate is not just about the students who stay, it's about reducing the number of students who stop out, and those who do, that they have an on-ramp back. So it's really all integrated when you think about it.
So I appreciate everyone's comments. I think this is a discussion that is worth having and will no doubt be ongoing over the next few months and years. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chair. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. We'll move into the executive committee. And our first item on that is Jennifer Smith is here to update us on any news from Frankfurt.
The good news is that session is over. So
Here, here.
we have a little break until next year. So I hope that you all received the update that I sent out to campus at the end of session. I wanted to just, I mentioned this at the last board meeting, how many bills were filed. So I just thought a little bit of information. So a total of 876 bills were filed during session. And of those, 176 were. So that shows you, we track a lot of legislation that never goes anywhere, but we keep an eye on a lot of things just in case, because you just never know what might start moving along. But I have lots of other facts here if you all really want to read my 3 pages of statistics about the bills, but I'll you all with the rest of that. So just a few things that I wanted to touch on. So House Bill 200. So what that does is it establishes the Kentucky Healthcare Workforce Investment Fund. And so this is just where it flows through the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education, but it takes healthcare programs, so nursing, whatever programs that we have that are healthcare related, and healthcare providers, and provides a pool of money. And so the healthcare provider puts in some money to this pool and that sort of thing. And it's to help benefit students, to encourage them to go into healthcare fields, so healthcare related fields. And so the overall goal is to attract more students to pursue a degree in healthcare and to incentivize the private partnerships with universities, which we already, I know Dr. Boston, she can speak to all the different partnerships we already have. So this is just another tool in the toolkit, basically, to help us with that, with encouraging the students to go into healthcare. Senate Bill 9 was an act relating to hazing. It's known as Lofton's Law, and so under this bill, any hazing that could result in physical harm or death is now a class of felony, and so that's just something that I think is just good for us as a university to know, especially Dr. Crow, you're not, just to be aware of. Senate Bill 20 was the bill that would ban TikTok from all state. And so universities were carved out of that just because we do use TikTok in our recruitment efforts, and we also use it as to help us monitor, just to see what's going on out there. It's a safety issue as well. So we are still able to use TikTok for whatever that we need as a university. Then there's, before I get to this joint resolution, I will say Regent Brody and Regent Dennison, they were both confirmed with their Senate resolutions. Of course, Regent Brody and I talked about this earlier at the final hour, I think, is about when that happens, which is normally what they do, is they're waiting on legislation to get between the chambers is when they do a lot of those confirmations. But again, we were the first university to have both of our regents brought forth in the Senate. So I think that shows how happy they were to have you all in these positions. So thank you all for your service. Okay, so the last one that I want to bring up is Senate Joint Resolution 98. And so what this does is it directs the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education to perform a 25-year look back on at post-secondary education in Kentucky. So this is from House Bill 1 that was passed in the special session in, I believe, 1997. And so higher ed reform was done then. It really hasn't been looked at closely since then. We've implemented performance funding, we've implemented some other things,
But to look at it as a whole and to see, are we doing what we need to be doing for Kentucky and for our students? Included in this is the study of possibly adding another four-year residential university in southeastern Kentucky. That's not necessarily a new university. It could be adding a private school into the public system. It could be taking a KCTCS and making it a four-year. That is, I don't expect that to necessarily just happen. Let me say that, but the study is there. The thought is there's an area of Kentucky where there is not a public university. And so the thought is, do we need one? So that's part of that study that and then also looking at the allocation of responsibility between the KCTCS system and mainly the comprehensive universities. So that is a very thorough study that has to be completed, and it has to be completed by December 1 of 23. So I do believe that CPE's plan is to hire an outside independent firm to come in and be able to do that. I don't know that CPE has the manpower to be able to do a study of this extent in that short of amount of time. So we just wait to hear more about that and see kind of where that goes, and just kind of learn as we go along with that one.
So I'll add a little bit of complexion. If you think about the national policy environment in higher education and some of the language that you see in the CP in the bill and what CP is instructed to do, the question is, are we getting the throughput or the productivity we needed in a system that was created 25 years ago by breaking all of the two-year degree programs and assigning them to the technical college system and creating a separate board, KCTCS. And so I think the question is focused on, have we gotten the degree or credential attainment out of that community college system that we anticipated, number one. Number two, have we created barriers to transfer from two-year to four-year institutions, or are there ways to increase those linkages? Are there ways for us to think about how it is those might be consolidated? And so for those who are familiar with what's happened in other states, there are other examples of this work. The Georgia system went through mergers and integration. The best example that I can think of that is the Georgia State Perimeter College merger, which happened about 7 years ago, and I think it's probably the best example of how this might work well. The other example that comes to mind is the Wisconsin system, which in 2017 took all the associate arts and associated science degrees and assigned them to the regional colleges and essentially put them under an umbrella, making small systems. And I think that has gone less well. And so, again, I think the outcome of this from the legislature's perspective is, how do we get more credentials and a better workforce and folks who are more educated for the Commonwealth, especially in competition with a state to our south that has a much higher attainment rate. The challenge is that it doesn't create efficiencies or cost savings ever. It really is about throughput, and the end is mixed usually. So it'll be a fascinating conversation. I do think that there are opportunities for us to define who we are as an institution in this. As the law exists today, it only contemplates our one institution. Given our scope of inquiry and $60 million, approaching $6 million in contracts and grants, we are on the verge with a couple of tweaks of being a research 2 university. We just can't be today because policy doesn't allow for it. And so I think we need to have that conversation as well in this process.
Questions, comments? Appreciate the work you do for us up there. Good project projects last year.
Look into the next budget session to hopefully bring us some more.
Yeah.
So that's my plan at least.
Well, thank you, Jen.
Welcome, thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, Chris, I'm gonna turn the show over to you.
There we go. So I didn't expect to get emotional at this moment, but anyway, over the past year, my team and I had the opportunity and the privilege of dreaming into the future of Fort College of Business because of funding received from the state legislature. As a first-generation college student, I have long and fervently believed in the power of education to change individuals' lives, but also communities. What I've learned through this process is that a great building design can amplify the educational experience of our students, and a building design specifically and customized for our students will further enhance their experience here at WKU. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Jeanette Scott to you. She's a leader on the Gensler team, and Gensler has been the one that has been leading the design process for us. You may recall that Gensler has been our design partner with the Commons at Helm Library, as well as the campus master plan. And they have really done an amazing job on this building. And so I would like to introduce Jeanette and turn it over to Jeanette so that she can talk about the design approach and the vision for this building.
Good morning, everybody. Regents, President Boney, thank you very much for having me here today. It is my pleasure to talk about Gensler's partnership with WKU in designing a future-oriented building for the Gordon Ford College of Business. The project is designed to build upon the strategic goals as already identified by Gordon Ford. In addition to the work that our team did in engaging with faculty, staff, and students to understand some key shifts that can occur in the experience today to on the experience of the students that might be somewhat restricted by the physical constraints of Grice Hall, and aim for an experience in the future that is more open, layered programs with student success and other support programs, some more unrestricted. The output of our research and number one is this idea of open arms. We want to create a building, an environment, and a space with a visible front door that includes visual transparency. Universally designed. Number two, building resilience. We want to be mindful that we're designing a building that will live on your campus for 50 to 100 years. It must be high quality. It must be able to adapt and flex as learning methods change over time. And also it must respect and be mindful of the environment. So our building will achieve LEED Silver certification. And finally, borderless. We want to design spaces that feel inclusive and break down silos to bring students, faculty, and staff together. Next, we recognize the context in which we're designing, and we want to continue the history and legacy of the WKU campus and build upon the Georgian principles of design that already exist today. As Dr. Shook mentioned in our work on the campus master plan, we had the opportunity to site this new College of Business. We chose this site overlooking South Lawn as it offered the potential for two front doors, one pedestrian-oriented front door building along the Centennial Mall, and then vehicular access, convenient drop-off of the normal street to the rear. In addition to providing this building on access with Smith Stadium, this also offers a new pedestrian route through the building, further connecting students, faculty, and staff beyond the College of Business alone. We could not have done this project without the valuable leadership of Dr. Shook and the input of the advisory committee and the focal group. They were key in identifying the key program elements of this building, their relationship to one another, and we landed on this idea of faculty space really being the bridge in this building. The result is a future-oriented college of business that allows students to prepare for their journey, become professionals. Designed to celebrate first-generation students and create a connected space for students, faculty, and staff that feels both professional and approachable. As seen from the South Lawn, Georgian in style, a central limestone colonnade frames the front door of the building. Front doors set within a glazed, dynamic facade that further acts as a backdrop to the South Lawn and a key focal point on campus. Complementing the center limestone colonnade are two brick-clad classroom wings, and it's topped with a copper dome. As seen along the path, excuse me, as seen along the path for Centennial Mall, this is coming to the south, you can see that the building steps back in deference to Guthrie Bell Tower. The central limestone colonnade steps forward to clearly demark the location of the main entry point, and the entry is elevated on a couple of steps, further identifying this as the entry point for the building. As I mentioned, the building will be fully accessible, so accessible ramps are integrated into planters at the front. It also shows a glimpse of the terrace, the exterior terrace on level 3 that overlooks the South Lawn. Once inside the building, programs are arranged to be easy to identify and navigate in between. The building is designed to allow for real-world, hands-on learning experiences that prepare students for their lives as professional, and for that learning to occur both inside and outside the classroom. The Trading Lab is a key program within the building designed to be a landmark space that's highly visible right off that main entry space. Here's a general overview of the first floor plan. Building has been designed to flex, recognizing how education can change and evolve over time. Some programs may shrink, others may grow, and teaching methods evolve. The material palette will extend from outside the building to inside the building, and we will use WKU's unique branding, colors, light to contribute to that wayfinding within the building so that space is easy to navigate. We've designed a flexible auditorium that will seat 300 students. It has a sloped floor and an overhead door that separates the space into 2 separate classrooms. Each will seat. So the space is hard work and functional classrooms on a day-to-day basis. Back outside the building, the building is approached from Normal Street. We have a drop-off, parking and drop-off to the left-hand side. We're tying into existing class or pedestrian paths across campus. And we're repeating that limestone colonnade to act as that main point of entry, a clear demarcation of how you come into this building. Coming closer to the building, you enter a series of outdoor rooms. This outdoor room is centered around an exterior fountain, adjacent to interior space. And at the end of the view, you can see a dedicated lawn for the college. So they have a dedicated outdoor space for events. Overlooking this outdoor room are level 2 and level 3 faculty offices. Back inside the building on level 2, we have on the top right of the plan, we have 2 flat floor classrooms that can be combined. Also provide event space. Some key program on level 2 includes the sales classroom with dedicated breakout space, active learning classroom, a tiered lecture classroom, the 1-button room, and we introduce faculty offices. As opposed to today, where each department has a dedicated faculty, faculty will share space on 2 floors. In alignment with Georgian principles, the procession through the building from the lobby up through the stairs and finally to the curtain represents the student's journey from being a new student to a graduate. On reaching the third floor, the skylight dome offers an immersive experience, functioning as a space to surprise and delight. This offers a view and connection down to the second floor below, out to the exterior terrace, and to the south wall beyond. On level 3, the program is very similar. We have faculty offices and with the addition of right corner. To close, this building will elevate the student experience by creating a space that inspires and allows for real-world experiences both inside and outside the classroom, supporting students in their journey to becoming professionals. I look forward to seeing the impact this building will have on the WKU community and the region. Thank you.
Wow.
So I want to thank Jeanette and Chris for the work. Many times on university campuses, you all heard me say this before, institutions will replace buildings or build new structures. I'm not interested in us doing that as an institution. Whatever things that we create, physical spaces we create, must be integrated with the academic work that's happening within the space. Elevate the experience that we're trying to create for our students in a way that enhances their education. And so what you see in here are spaces where applied learning occurs and is highlighted. You see a student services area that integrates financial planning, advising, tutoring, essentially every support service in one spot that's integrated. Every student knows if I'm challenged, I go to that one place. I can get everything that I need there, no matter what the issue is. And in the last, I'll say, and Chris and I, at the start, had many back and forth around what this building was going to look like. And some of you will remember from my first press conference when I was being announced as university president, I got, I think someone set this question up. So the number one academic priority for a building has been the College of Business for the past 20 years. Is that going to be your priority as well? And I'm smart enough to know how to answer that question. But I said then that a great college of business needs a great place to conduct its business. And this position on South Lawn, right next to Guthrie Tower, at a place where we gather together as a community over and over again, what we've created is a symbol for our institution that's going to be a long-standing symbol that represents the Georgian classical design that we see, but is also about transparency and engagement. And so I'm really proud of the work that the faculty did. I'm really thankful that Chris and I could get to a good conclusion. He wanted an Apple store. I said, that's fine, as long as you wrap it in collegiate Georgian architecture. And Gensler somehow figured out how to do that. It is a special space for our campus. We will groundbreaking on June 14th, where we'll all celebrate the beginning of the work. And in the summer and fall of 2025, the new building will have its ribbon cut, and we'll all celebrate a remarkable space that is a front door for our campus. So, congratulations.
Thank
I will say, Bruce had our last strategic committee meeting at the library, and it was fun walking in there and seeing that space being utilized and to describe integrate. Fuel for the campus.
I'd be remiss if I did not thank the governor and the state legislature for providing the funds for this, the $74.4 million necessary to create this. They saw the value in our fastest growing college, up to 200 students in the past 3 years, and this will just accelerate that growth and expansion.
And I give a shout out to the faculty, staff, alums, students who've been impressed all and managed to build an excellent program here. despite many challenges.
What you say?
Dean Scoop, any final words?
I am just thrilled and excited, and this will really be a game changer for the college. So thank you very much.
Making an already beautiful campus even more beautiful. Other comments, discussion? We're nearing the end then. Again, I think all of us need to send our thoughts and prayer to Regent Ball at this difficult time. Be thinking of her a lot the next few days. Per our bylaws, we do have elections every year, and we will have Regent Brody as chairing our nominating committee, and that will be done before the June meeting. That's a bit of information that I have. That being said, we're a committee meeting. I don't need a motion, and